welcome to another edition of SEC Talk with your hosts Holden and Cody. Hope you guys are doing good this evening. Cody, how we doing this evening? Dude. You did what? Well, anyways, I gave a little bit of an intro for us. We're trying to get it all. We're trying to get it all worked on, guys. I've started and stopped this podcast 14 times already tonight.
We're still recording at least.
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay, let me make sure. We don't have the best luck when it comes to these things, guys.
I know we should almost hire somebody else, but we really shouldn't.
Look, we need somebody to push buttons because we barely can't do it.
Yep. When it's not one thing, you forget the other thing, and 'tis the way it goes. But anyways, how you doing this evening, Cody? I know I missed out on you guys with your Monday and
Monday morning.
yeah, I know, and Nate joining in with us.
Yeah, I had our Auburn analyst joining in with us. We actually got another special guest scheduled, I think, next week. We'll have to get up with him set up a better time, but we'll have somebody else on the show probably next Thursday or next Sunday, depending on his availability. We'll have to get up with him. But besides that, yeah, we're doing another show, guys. We appreciate y'all listening, and across the world too. I was looking at our stats earlier. We got listeners in like 8 different continents, or 8 different countries. So we appreciate our overseas listeners.
Yeah.
Tuning in.
For sure. If you guys follow us on Facebook, Twitter, at SEC Talk 20, y'all shoot us a message or what have you. Tweet at us. Would love to hear from you guys. Shout you guys out on the show as well as on Twitter or what have you. I know I hadn't been quite as active on Twitter lately. Obviously, I'm going to play a little something for you. We're getting into the holiday spirit and season. Christmas is right around the corner, so you know, it's getting busy. We just got through Thanksgiving. We've got a few weeks till we get to Christmas. It's my favorite time of year, but it's also it becomes a very busy time of year, and it's just been tough trying to keep everything lined up. Last week I was looking, and the reason I wasn't able to get our YouTube stuff up, and you're not going to care anything about this, but guess what? I'm going to tell you anyway. Is when I went to sign in to YouTube, I had everything signed in because I have multiple different accounts, and for what instead of switching account, right below it says sign out, and I accidentally clicked that. Well, when I did it, I could not sign in on any of the channels that I had. Any of them, I could not sign in to be able to upload the video. So it took me like 2 days to finally be able to get in it. I had to do it all kind of sideways to be able to finally get in. So got it in. Should be able to get this up this evening, which you guys more than likely, whenever you watch it, listen to anything, it'll all be good. So, anyways, we're going to get to some football for you guys. Tuesday, the College Football Playoff second committee meeting and their release of rankings came out. Not a lot of change, I think, in the top 7, but we'll go through the rest of those. We'll run through your games. We're gonna do our Crimson Dog of the week that we didn't do, obviously, Monday because I was not here. We've got your picks. We've got a little bit to talk about in some high school stuff because we're starting to get in playoff talk. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and that's pretty much going to wrap up the night. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Some teams are just now really 1 to 2, I guess, starting, but most of them, are basically at state championship side. So, but Cody, if you don't mind, do you want to run through our top 25 that the College Football Playoff poll came out on Tuesday for everybody?
Yeah, I'll run through real quick. Like you mentioned, there's not much change 1 through 7. There is some controversy there in the top 4 and 5 spot. We'll talk about at the end of the top 25. But running through number 1, of course, is Alabama, sitting at 8-0 on the season. They did have that game against LSU to get postponed, but they rescheduled it and are playing it this weekend. Number 2, you have Notre Dame sitting 9-0 on the season. Right behind them, Clemson is 8-1, who only loss this year came to the number 2 team. Ohio State sitting behind them 4-0. Texas A&M sitting 5th behind them 6-1. Florida sitting behind them 7-1. Cincinnati sitting 7th, 8-0. Georgia sitting in the 8th spot, 6-2. And Holes playing with the Christmas tree or Christmas house. Poor people inside are so scared right now they're running for the cover or something. So Georgia went up a spot to number 8. They went from 9 to 8. Iowa State jumped up 4 spots to number 9, 7-2 on the year. Miami sitting at 10th spot, 7-1. Oklahoma sitting at 11th, 6-2. Indiana sitting 12th, 5-1. BYU jumping up a spot to 13th, 9-0 in the year. Northwestern with their loss falls to 14th. Oklahoma State's 15th. Wisconsin 16th. North Carolina 17th. Coastal Carolina 18th. Iowa 19th. USC 20th. Marshall 21. Washington 22. Last week they were not ranked, so they bump up to the top in the 22nd spot. Oregon falls 8 spots, but still in the top 25 to 23rd. Tulsa jumping up a spot to 24, and the old Louisiana Raging Cajuns are sitting 25th, 8-1 on the season.
Yeah, your Raging Cajuns find themselves back in the top 25 for another week.
Hey man, they back and forth up and down left and right. Ain't no telling what that's going on there.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, let's jump right into it. Let's do our Crimson Dog of the week.
Hold on.
What you got?
So, let's talk about that little controversy.
Okay,
there
all right, yeah. All right.
You kind of jumped ahead of us, man. I said we're going to talk about that. You want to jump ahead.
Sorry, I forgot just that quick. Listen, my memory is just about as good as, well, whatever's got terrible memory.
Your nose just pulled it out your brains. What happened?
A little bit.
So, there's controversy there. There's a lot of talk in the committee. This is coming from the chairman, Greg.
Sankey.
I already forgot his name. No, not Greg Sankey. That's the SEC commissioner. The commissioner for the playoffs.
Oh,
See, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, like I said, I've got terrible memory when it comes to some things.
I don't remember what his last name is. But the chairman for the playoff committee said there's a lot of talk about swapping the 4 and 5 team, Ohio State and Texas A&M. Only because Ohio State does not have the games. Now,
And they're not going to be able to play them either.
Well, that's the thing. You can't make them up, so they're done. Well, if they miss one more game, they won't have enough to qualify for the Big Ten Championship. You need 6 games to be able to play in the Big Ten Championship. So, will the Big Ten kind of say, COVID, we'll give them a break and let them slide in? Or are they going to say, look, we understand, but at the same time, we have to follow our rules. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Big Ten does with Ohio State in that situation.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you, and I can see it. It's tough to put A&M in that 4 spot. At the end of the day, the fun part about that right there is that if Alabama beats Florida, Alabama has already beat A&M. Do you put them in, or do you give an Ohio State team that doesn't have quite as many games the nod over them, especially if they go undefeated? You know, for Florida to get in, they have to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game. And really, all they have to do, I say really, as long as they beat Tennessee this weekend, their ticket's punched, they're going. There's no way that they can miss out on going to the SEC championship game. So, and by all means, in my own thought process at least, is I think they've pretty much punched the ticket, and you'll see them facing off in Alabama on the 19th. So, but that I could see the swap because of not having games. But I really think if you're going to do it, you already have to have done it. Otherwise, I mean, it's pointless. It's pointless to wait and do it. I mean, I get it. You know, you're looking at Alabama 8 games, Notre Dame 9 games, Clemson's already played 9 games, Ohio State's only played 4, and they're way up there. You know, you got teams like USC, they've only played 3 games. Washington, they've only played 3 games. Oregon, 4 games. They're way down at the bottom of the pack. Wisconsin, 3 games, which they were ranked higher up, but they lost, so they dropped them on down. they're not able to have those games. So I think that's recency bias as far as Ohio State goes. I get it; they are a great team. Their defense does not look nearly as good. Their offense didn't struggle, but made a lot of mistakes when they played Indiana and let Indiana come back into that game. But I'm not here to talk to you about Big Ten football. I'm here to talk to you about SEC football. And I could definitely see A&M being over them, but I think then you have to kind of take that head-to-head matchup. If you said, okay, if Ohio State and Texas A&M were to play, who do I think would win? I think Ohio State would win. If you had that thought process, well, then you've got to give Ohio State the nod. And I don't think you're going to put Florida in the top 4 unless they beat Alabama. That's their only way into that top 4 is by winning the SEC championship. And if that happens, I don't foresee Alabama falling out of that top 4.
My thing is, so looking at it, here's the other way it could go. If Florida does happen to beat Bama in the championship game, you will have 2 SEC teams in.
Yep.
If Clemson beats Notre Dame in the championship, you could have 2 ACC teams in because their only losses to each other. The only team in that top.
I've got a wild. Go ahead. I've got a wild scenario after that.
If you're looking at the same thing I'm looking at, you're probably thinking the same thing. There's a team there sitting that is just waiting, and that is number 7, Cincinnati. Cincinnati has the record and has a resume to go. That team is on the outside looking in. If they stay undefeated and win their conference that they are in, they're in the conference on that.
Cincinnati?
Let me double check that real quick.
No, I think Cincinnati's an independent, aren't they? Are they like Conference USA or? Let's see. I think I got it right here. Oh, wrong page. We're gonna double check our. Why do you have to freeze?
No, Cincinnati is an American conference.
American, that's what it is.
AAC.
That's the one.
But now, if you look at their games, I'm going back up real quick. They have a win over Army, over SMU, over Memphis, and Tulsa canceled, Memphis canceled, and they're replaying Tulsa, which is ranked. If they beat Tulsa, that puts them at 9-0 on the year.
Yep. I'm going to tell you a crazy scenario right here.
So hold on. That
Go
gives
ahead.
them the conference.
Yep.
I think you would have to give Cincinnati that number 4 spot if Bama beats Florida, and if Notre Dame beats Clemson again, Bama Notre Dame's 1-2, that's it. Ohio State has to have those 6 games to play in the Big Ten. If they don't have those 6 games to play in the Big Ten, they're out.
Yep.
You could have a one-loss SEC team, which would be Texas A&M at that point, and Cincinnati in your top 4. If they did it like that, they could get away. Because Georgia's 2 losses were to Alabama and to Florida.
Yep.
So, out of those top 10 teams, Cincinnati is that 5th team, or said 6th team, that has the best chance of getting to the top 4. If Ohio State can't pull the games, and if Notre Dame can pull it whenever Clemson, they would need those 2 things to happen for Cincinnati to be looked at.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's why they're ranked so high at number 7. Because if you look down, the closest team that's not really a Power 5 conference is BYU in 13th.
Yeah.
The next biggest chance.
Now let me hit you.
That situation,
Go ahead. Sorry.
that situation I think could happen.
Yeah, that's very well possible.
And out of your top 15 teams, your 2 best teams outside the top 6, to me, is Cincinnati and BYU.
Yeah, I do
Just based
think.
on record and
Yeah, I do think similarly like you're saying there. That's possible. I think that boils down to kind of like what I was talking about. If you took an Ohio State versus a Texas A&M today, who do you think is going to win? I think that's what boiled down to putting Ohio State at 4. And I think the same thing could be said for the teams above Cincinnati. Could Cincinnati beat Florida right now? I don't think it could happen. Could they beat Texas A&M? It depends on if A&M's playing good ball or not, if their offense is showing up or not.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's some of it. But here's the crazy scenario right here. It's a lot different from that. Is if Alabama loses in the SEC championship, I fully believe Alabama and Florida have to make it in. So there's 2 spots right there. If Notre Dame if Clemson beats Notre Dame, I think you have to leave both of those in. Now you're talking about 2 SEC, 2 ACCs, and Ohio State has to be bumped out of that situation. I would personally think it.
In that situation, you take a one-loss team, whether they won conference or not, over an undefeated Ohio State, just based on the parameters that they played a full season.
Yep. Now the next question is going to come is, if Alabama beats Florida, all right, Florida's out. Now you have to talk about, does A&M get in? Well, then if Notre Dame beats Clemson, personally, I think you have to put A&M in, because that drops Clemson a notch below them. So then if you had an Alabama A&M, the only bad thing there is if it's the rematch game. People don't want to see rematches, as fun as that can be. Take Auburn and Georgia a couple of years ago. There's multiple different ones.
Are not good when you're playing Bama.
No, generally not, but A&M was on the bad side of that. I will say this would be the year that, I've said it. I even said it this season that my prediction was that Georgia would lose in the regular season, but would beat Alabama in the SEC championship. They don't get the opportunity this year, but this would be the one time that I could see Alabama beat A&M at the beginning of the season and turn around and probably beat them worse at the end of the season, just because Alabama's offense is really rolling and that defense is different from the way it was week 2 when they played.
Yeah, that's the thing is Alabama has gotten better from the start of the season till now.
Yeah,
it's not the same team that you saw up till the Ole Miss game.
Yeah,
because after the Ole Miss game, the Pete Golden and Steve Sarkisian changed that whole program. As far as offense, defense goes, they changed a lot of things after the Ole Miss.
Yeah.
You saw it against Georgia, and then Tennessee, and then Mississippi State. You saw the changes, and then they're just improving as they go. But,
yeah. Well, hey, keep your eyes out, because Sunday, December 20th, that'll be the playoff selection day there.
Well, you'll definitely get more out of it after this week and after next week, because the next week is your championship games. Conference games.
Yep, got a couple weeks.
Gives you a better idea. But Ohio State has to play this week and next week to be considered.
Yeah.
Now, if one of those teams get COVID, they have to reschedule the game for that 6th game. If not, I think Ohio State drops from the top 4, drops out of the top 10.
Yeah.
Just based on those parameters that, look, you didn't meet the qualifications, we're not going to keep you in the top 5. We can't do that. That's not fair.
Yeah, I get that.
These other teams.
I get that. Well, I tell you what, let's jump into some of the SEC football, because I got a feeling we could basically do an entire show on basically the college football playoff, but we're going to save that for probably the week of selection day, or maybe next week. Yeah, maybe next week. I know there's some games that'll be updated there, so we can spend a little bit more time on it next week as well, but. So let's jump back into our normal stuff here, and like I said, Monday we didn't go over it because I wasn't here, but we're gonna hit you with the Crimson Dog of the Day, or Dog of the Week from the week previous. I know we're a little off on our timing on that, and Cody, I'll let you say it.
Who's yours?
It's the same as yours. We just went with one this week.
I was saying, I mean, just based on the performance alone and the stats that he put up against the really good defense that was supposed to be there that never really showed up, we're going to go with Matt Jones. They went 18 for 26 for 300 yards, 5 touchdowns. So I think that leadership that he has is finally proven. And he's like, look, guys, I can lead this team. And what's bad, I didn't realize this, he was a 3-star quarterback prospect coming out of high school. 3 stars. He don't look like a 3-star quarterback prospect at all. So our coach Clemson Dog of the Week is going to Matt Jones for the performance that he had against Auburn last week in the Iron Bowl. They were at home, and him and that offense just powered through and gave Auburn more than they could handle. So
yeah, I believe if I remember reading correctly, it tied his career high for 5 touchdowns in a single game. And I don't remember if I read that it tied or that he actually broke the Iron Bowl record for touchdowns. Okay, so it was tied for Iron Bowl record in an Iron Bowl. So congrats up to Mac Jones.
They tied the previous quarterback too.
Gotcha.
They tied the previous Alabama quarterback to a Tunga.
Gotcha. All right. Well, good deal. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and jump right into the games. Let's start it off at that 12 o'clock noon slate. You got A&M taking on Auburn. A&M a 6.5-point favorite. That one's going to be on ESPN. Cody, tell me kind of what you're thinking about this. Obviously, as always, we're going to get to the games. We're going to get to our picks afterwards. So tell me kind of how you're feeling about this Texas A&M and Auburn game, because it's pretty intriguing to me.
Yeah, this one's kind of wild. I really think this one's going to be fairly close, but I think even though Auburn is at home, it's going to be more than they can handle. Kelly Mond has gotten better through the season. He's really improving on his passing. Spiller for A&M is really good on running, and we saw the Auburn defense have a lot of trouble trying to maneuver a throwing quarterback and a great running back. So I think A&M is going to give Auburn some trouble up there in Jordan Hare.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the only good thing going for Auburn in this one, outside of trying to get that offense going, is that they are at home. So it stands a chance. You stand a chance to be able to get A&M to come into you. That 12 o'clock slate, that's an 11 o'clock kickoff there at Auburn. So it's an early one. You might can catch Texas A&M coming into it sleepwalking, and Auburn could pop them. And they could change all the talk as far as that top 4, top 5 goes there in the college football playoff as far as that goes, because A&M, offensively they just hadn't been very explosive. Now I think they can be. I just haven't seen a lot of it, because sometimes you look at that offense and it's just really lackluster, and you're just kind of left wondering, can this offense really produce enough to be able to compete and be truly considered a top 4 team in the country? And if they could be, this is going to be a game to prove it. I think if they come in here and they were to wear Auburn out at the house early and just take care of business, dominate the game, that's a statement win for them, even though Auburn has not been all that great this season.
A defensive lineman, I think, had to have surgery. He's out for this game, and they still have 2 more offensive linemen and Tank Speesby on caution. So they may not have them either, depending on how they go. Because we saw Tank hurt against Bama, and you could tell that it affected him in that game. It wasn't running like he has been all season. So
yeah, well that's just another perk moving in the A&M way.
So keep an eye on Auburn and see how that works with those players. Because if they don't go in there with Tank Speesby and this offensive lineman or defensive lineman, I think that's going to just pretty much put it in there for Auburn.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, continuing to roll on. Let's go on over to Missouri. Arkansas traveling up to Missouri. Missouri is a 3-point favorite. Look to that line to possibly change later on if you're listening to this one. It's leaning a little bit lower than that, so we'll keep an eye on it. That one is, again, at that 12 o'clock slate. That one's going to be on SEC Network. Arkansas coming into this one. I think Sam Pittman's finally back after being out with coronavirus. So look for him to kind of get things rolling, the offense to keep going under Felipe Franks. Missouri, they've kind of showed up these last few weeks. They've been on a good little win streak and really working hard, trying to keep things rolling there and keep the program alive without just letting it kind of meander out for the season. They come into this one. I have my numbers up here. Let me see if I can pull them back up real quick while I'm thinking about it. Yeah, they're 4-3 coming into this one. The over-under on that one is 52. I don't know. I've just got a feeling this is the game. Arkansas for weeks now, they've been playing the game, that you think they should win. They've won a couple of games that they didn't. Refs kind of beat them up in it. and I've been looking for that game for them to win that they're not expected to win, and I got a feeling that this could be it. Tell me kind of how you feel about it.
Yeah, this one's going to be fun to watch. Sam Pittman and those Razorbacks were cooking something up there in Arkansas, but I think with the sorry, I'm trying to pull but I think with Missouri rolling like they are, they had a few big wins that they kind of are sitting on. They had a rough week last week, if I remember correctly. I don't remember. Yeah, they won off last week. Anyways, my phone was being retarded. Missouri to me is a better team all around. Yeah, Arkansas has Felipe Franks, but really and truly, he hasn't really stood out like I think we all wanted him to see. Which it's kind of hard when you're getting rushed as much as he is. But at the same time, I believe that Missouri is a better, well-rounded team on both sides of the ball, whereas Arkansas's defense is kind of sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. And we've seen how they can go so far this year. And they're definitely going to show up against Missouri. So we'll have to wait and see how that game turns out.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with you. We're going to see how it rolls. Felipe Franks coming in over 2,000 yards, throwing 17 touchdowns on the season. Larry Roundtree, the third there from Mizzou, looks to keep things rolling on the ground. And Traylon Burks is the leading receiver there for Arkansas and your key players to watch. Moving on to that 3:30 kick on CBS. You got Florida and Tennessee. This one's pretty much going to wrap up the East here if Florida can take care of business. They're expected to, 17.5. Who do you got? Who you think? Do you think Tennessee can give them any trouble, or do you think this is the game that decides Jeremy Pruitt's fate there in up in Tennessee?
So, I saw a comment made to Jeremy Pruitt on one of the radio shows that I guess
Oh, yeah.
I didn't read into it. You know, you've seen it. I think most people have.
Yeah, I was reading it. Like, I read half of it, and I was like, I ain't going to read this anymore. Yeah.
Here's my thing. Jeremy Pruitt's a good coach, but he's not head coach material in the SEC.
He's a good coordinator.
He's a great coordinator now, but head coach-wise, I don't think he fits that profile as well. And Dan Mullen, to me, is a better head coach. And as far as quarterback matchup goes, Kyle Trask outweighs, well, whoever they're going with. If it's going to be Jared or if it's going to be somebody else, because you never know with Florida or Tennessee, they've been bouncing quarterbacks here late to try and figure something out.
That's true. I got a question for you in this one. You know, Kyle Trask, he's come onto the scene there at Florida. I mean, obviously after Felipe Franks' injury last season, Kyle Trask came in and he took over the reins. And this season, he's much improved. He's great. He has not really had a game where he just kind of sat back and you were like, hey, it didn't look all that great. Maybe Texas A&M wasn't the best. But outside of that, every game, for the most part, he has thrown for a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns, looked really good. Is this a game where he possibly struggles with a Tennessee defense and maybe doesn't put up the yardage, maybe doesn't put up the numbers you would expect for a Heisman-leading candidate? Tell me kind of how you feel. I mean, I feel like there's got to eventually be a game where he just doesn't play that great. Now, that could be all the way down to the SEC championship game, but is there a chance that Tennessee's defense is able to make him stumble a little bit, or are the Gators just going to roll right past them?
So I've noticed out here lately with Florida is they'll go for a couple scores on the team and they'll swap out quarterbacks. They did it against Vandy. They did it against Kentucky.
Understandable.
Which we all understand that. We saw what happened last year with Alabama until, in the game he shouldn't really been playing in, got injured, ended his season altogether. But at the same time, if you look at the way that they've been playing teams, their performance is so over the board, you never know what floor team you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to get the 63-point against Arkansas team, or you don't know if you're going to get the 34 against Kentucky. Because even last week, they did not really impress me. And I think that's actually hurting his Heisman odds. I know they're not saying it, and I know they're not showing it, but at the same time, I really think if he does not perform 100% in this game, in the next game they got LSU the week following as a makeup game. They need to perform over the schedule.
In what terms though? Because they've been looking great. They still look good against Kentucky.
Great. I mean, but at the same time, you go with a struggle win against who was it? That beat them first of the season. Was it A&M?
Yeah, A&M is the game they lost.
They lost to A&M 41-38.
Yeah.
If Tennessee comes out swinging, which you know they're going to, especially after this week, where they're calling for Jeremy Pruitt's job, I'm hoping he lights a fire under Tennessee and gets them fired up coming out the gate. They're at home with Florida, which is good. I don't know. I'm hesitant on this game because just the way Tennessee's been performing and the way Florida's been performing.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards Florida.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that, but as I don't remember that movie, but there's a chance.
Yeah.
It's not a big chance, but there's a chance.
That's right.
And we've seen crazier stuff here in 2020. I would not mark off this game. I'd watch it because Tennessee can slip up and beat Florida. If they do that, that's going to cause a monkey wrench in the East.
Yep. It throws a big one in there, and to throw more of a monkey wrench in it, if Florida was to lose to Tennessee and then turn around and somehow lose to LSU in a week, then you got a whole nother subject on it. Then all of a sudden, if Georgia can win out, which all they got to do is beat Vandy now and then figure out when to play Missouri, then, I mean,
if Georgia wins out and
yeah.
Florida struggles his last two,
Yep.
Georgia goes to championship game.
It changes a lot of stuff because I don't think you can take a two-loss team, even if they won the SEC championship. Then, again, that's a pipe dream as far as Georgia fans go. So let's not dive too deep into that. But I got a feeling the Gators, they've been looking to get back on top of the East for a while, for the past few years. And I think this, yeah. So I think this is the one they're going to come in and they should be able to roll past Tennessee. Speaking of Georgia, they take on Vandy at home, senior night there for the Dogs. Vandy hadn't won a game. Georgia's won a few, obviously 6-2 coming in this one, ranked 8th. That one's at 4 o'clock on the SEC Network. Ken Seals looks good there at quarterback for Vandy, but that's about it. Georgia under JT Daniels, it looks like a whole nother offense. It looks like a much greater moving offense as far as the air game goes. All of a sudden, Georgia's been able to open it up. 2 weeks ago, throws for 400 yards. Doesn't throw for nearly as many last week, but they ran all over them. When the week previous they hadn't ran for anything. So look for Georgia to really rack it up in this one. I will say this. I'm kind of excited to see if old Sarah can get in and get a field goal in there. It'd be just kind of fun to see if she can put one on the board here at the late part of the game. But I got a feeling Georgia's defense is really going to lock that down, and their offense should be pretty potent in this one. I'm not really looking for this one to be a close one, and that's kind of how the line is. It's the largest line in the SEC this week, 35.5 for the Dogs.
We're playing Vandy, though.
Yep.
But, I mean, like you mentioned, last week Vandy had a bad struggle. Derek Mason is not there, so they have an intern. I think the offensive coordinator is taking over for this game. So that we kind of see what changes between what was and what is, and see what adjustments that they made during this week.
Yep.
So, because last week they didn't put up nothing.
Yeah, and I will say this is one other thing. This game, there is still the possibility that between now and Saturday when that game plays at 4 o'clock, there is the possibility this game gets canceled because Vandy is without a lot. Between Corona, between a lot of people opting out, multiple people opting out this past week after everything that's been happening, Vanderbilt is really, really falling apart in all aspects, unfortunately. So something to keep an eye on there as well.
Yeah, I mean, you got to watch that out. Kentucky played last week with skimming the bucket. I mean, they didn't have the players there. They're missing close to 20 players. They were just above that line for minimum players, and they ran with Florida, I'd say, fairly well. So Vandy needs to watch that, and they don't have the caliber teams to go minimum up against Georgia. Even though Georgia's just finally now found that fire with JT Daniels. Which, if you haven't heard or if you missed news, DeJuan Mathis, who actually started the season for Georgia, into the transfer portal.
Yep.
And I think we kind of saw that coming once JT got in. I think we kind of knew they were going look, we're going to go with JT once he's in, and once he's in. I think, I hate to say it, I hate to see a quarterback go. We saw it happen with Justin Fields. But at the same time, I think some of these guys need to learn too. You're coming in as a true freshman. Unless you're just out the gate great, you're not going to be that superstar athlete that you think you are.
Yeah. Which, I mean, he wasn't a freshman. He was, I guess, technically a redshirt freshman. You know, he came in and had the brain surgery. But I knew we had talked a little bit about it. You know, there was the possibility of him or Carson Beck, you know, a couple of guys possibly leaving because of it. You know, it's been a strange year. The fact that preseason we were talking about Jamie Newman was going to be a Heisman winner and Georgia was winning the national championship, and things were looking. I mean, look at the difference as what you're looking at now. Georgia's not even playing an SEC championship, so definitely interesting. But we'll keep an eye on it there, see if that game does continue to be played. Let's go ahead and move on up to Kentucky and the sundown games here at 7:30 on SEC Network. South Carolina traveling up to Kentucky. Kentucky 11.5-point favorite. How you feel about this one?
Yeah, I think South Carolina's just been struggling this year. That's the other team, in the SEC to get rid of their head coach and Will Muschamp. And I saw a comment saying something about they're going to send him down to the coaching rehab university.
Yeah, that's the University of Alabama, right? Yeah.
Giving coaches second chances since 2010. But no, I mean, with the changes that they had there at quarterback or coaching, with Muschamp being out and making adjustments there, trying to find a new head coach for that position, I think South Carolina's just on cruise mode at this point. Like, they don't care. They done gave up. They're pretty much saying, you know what, let's just get done with this year. We're done. Let's just finish this out. We got two more games, I think. Just let us quit. We're tired of it. Can we just end it now?
I'm kind of surprised Vandy hadn't folded up shop, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too. But I think Kentucky, if they win here, I think they may be bowl eligible. But that's one of the smaller bowls.
I don't know how it's going to work out bowls this year. South Carolina's 2-7, Kentucky's 3-6. I know you don't have to win 6 games this season, but I don't know how. I think everybody gets a bowl. I think it's kind of like the Price is Right. You are. Who was it? Oprah. Yeah, you get a bowl game. You get a bowl game. You get a bowl game. So, yeah, I don't know exactly how that one's gonna line up.
I think Kentucky's gonna come here with a little bit more attitude than South Carolina is. Like I said, I think South Carolina's pretty much on cruise mode. Said, look, let's just get through this so we can get started for next year.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I feel.
That's pretty much what they're at now.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about Kentucky in this one. 11.5-point favorite, 47.5 is over under on this one. Let's just go right ahead and move on down to that revenge game. Alabama traveling down to the Bayou of LSU. LSU 3-4 coming in this one. Alabama, obviously the number one team in the country, 8-0. Alabama comes in a huge favorite in this one, 29.5. 67 is the over under on this one, and it is definitely looking to line up as a revenge game. Poor LSU. You know, you got to think that old Ed O's kind of wishing he wouldn't have said some of the things he did at the end of the season or the end of the game last year. Another question that I had rise up that I wanted to ask you about is, when do you think that Ed O's seat becomes hot? I don't think it does this year. Obviously, he just won a national championship last year. I'm thinking next season, if he loses, if he goes like, if we have a normal 12-game season, if he goes like 5-7 next season, I think his seat becomes pretty hot.
So, my thing with LSU and Coach O is this year, you put an asterisk by this year.
Yeah.
You had several of your best players opt out last minute.
Yep.
Right before the season started. Then your leading quarterback went down with a knee injury, and now you're ahead of the line 2 freshmen.
Yep.
So, I don't blame it all on him as much as I do some of the players, because at the same time, you have to play this game.
Yeah.
If if you're not in it to play this game, if you're in it just for the money and it's showing like it is right now, there's an issue. And it's going to come back and bite them in the butt to sit there and just look at the money of it, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Nothing against that now. I'm not trying to knock players who are...
No, it's all good.
If they get off better themselves, that's fine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, look at some of these other teams. Look at Auburn, for instance. One of their best receivers, Seth Williams, he didn't have to play this year. He could have opted out.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't. He decided to play. Tace Bigsby, he could have. He decided to play.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely make that argument plenty of ways there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's certain teams who they had some great players who could have opted out, but they didn't because they want to play the game.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest difference that you see. And I think LSU, those guys who are opting out, they knew, look, this season we're not going to be great. They had no faith in their team, to me. If you leave your team like that, after you just win a national championship with your team, you can come back next year and say, oh, I'm not playing because of coronavirus. No, there's something else behind that. You just don't want to come and say, I don't want to play. I'm not playing because I don't trust my teammates. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I get that. Well, how do you feel about this game in particular as far as it goes?
So, LSU's in trouble.
Yeah.
LSU's in trouble. Alabama's rolling. That train up there in Tuscaloosa was rolling hot. And after all of that smack talk they did last year after the game, you get some defensive players coming after you.
Yep. And they get the late night game, even though it is down in LSU. It's 8 o'clock on CBS. Alabama's finna make that a home game, even though they ain't gonna have no fans in the stands.
That game's gonna be quiet by the second quarter. I'm gonna call that one out. That game's gonna be quiet.
That one's gonna be. I think that's gonna be like the LSU Oklahoma game in the semifinals last year. By halftime, Joe Burrow's already thrown like 6 touchdowns, and it's just not even a game. You would have thought that was the final at halftime.
Alabama LSU championship game back in 2013.
It's very well possible. Wait, say that again.
In 13. Championship game.
Oh, I thought that was.
National championship.
I thought that was like 2009.
Was it not?
Yeah, it's been a while back. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Go ahead.
With the BCS.
Go ahead.
It was his last game with the BCS. Because that was the last game they had a championship for the BCS, and it was 2 SEC teams. They're like, well, we don't want this to happen. And the next year they had 2 teams in it anyways.
I got you. I thought it was Auburn and Missouri playing in the SEC championship. That's why I wasn't sure how Alabama and LSU would have played.
I think it was Alabama and LSU in 13 or 14. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyways, yeah. No, I'm the same way. I think Alabama's absolutely going to roll over them.
And as far as Coach O's hot seat, like I said, this year, kind of, all right, look, this is going to be on your paper, but we're going to kind of keep it to the side. Next year is your year to redeem yourself and build your team. Yeah, no more excuses. Start getting your team built up.
Yep.
Now, they did lose a lot of coaches, too, at the same time. They had some coaches transfer out, from what I understand. So, that's a lot of adjustments to go. But next year, I think that they start lighting that seat and seeing what happens as far as what adjustments can you make now.
Yep. Very true.
Hey, we'll jump that back and forth on picks.
All right, that sounds good. Well, you heard him. We're going to jump right into your picks real quick, guys. And, boom, I'll get it up on the screen for you. Cody, I'll let you start us off. Cody's 30-7 so far after his 6-0 track last weekend. I am 26-11. Obviously, you can see on the board, and I think I've touched on it a little bit, Cody is just picking the outright game and the score that he thinks is going to pop up. I'm going with some spreads and some over-unders on some games. So, just to change it up a little bit, because otherwise we would have basically the same record, minus maybe a game or two here and there, which just doesn't seem quite as fair. So, Cody, I'll let you start it off, and like you say, we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, so start off with that 12 o'clock game in Auburn and Texas A&M, number 5 in the country. Even though Auburn's at home, I think Texas A&M's offensive power is going to be too strong for that Auburn defense, especially with all the damage and injuries that they're dealing with. And the offense for Auburn's kind of have a long tire right now. They're just kind of rolling along. Hopefully they can get that adjusted, but I think A&M's going to pull this one out 35-28 on this one.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I'm taking that line 6.5 there for A&M. I think they beat them by 10 or better. The only reason they keep it, I think, within like 10 to 13 maybe is just because Auburn's defense is not terrible. They're looking a little bit better than they have been, but still not all that great. Nonetheless, again, I'm going to take Texas A&M 6.5 there. And staying at that lunchtime kick, we're going to go down to Arkansas, Missouri. And this will be one of our only differences if we just pick games or scores. Missouri is a 3-point favorite. Give it to me. Give me Arkansas. I think Arkansas can keep that number below that 3, whether it's 2, whether it's 1, or Arkansas wins. I think Arkansas is going to win it. So give me that 3 line there for Arkansas. I know you feel a little bit differently about it.
Yeah, nothing against Arkansas and Razorback and Sam Pittman. They're doing great things up there, but I think Missouri's just rolling really good right now. They have a few really good games here in the past couple of weeks. Excuse me. And after that game last week against Vandy, nobody special, but they downed Vandy.
Yeah.
They're the only team I believe right now to down Vandy. Should have pulled this up earlier.
It's all good.
So yeah, I just think A&M or Vandy's just not going to be able to kick, or Arkansas is just not capable to do that. So
I think you and I talked a little bit about off the record.
Not to give up a touchdown.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about it off the record before we started talking. I feel like this has got to be the game that Arkansas has played a couple. They had Auburn beat, and unfortunately the refs took it from them. I think they had Ole Miss beat, and unfortunately the refs took it from them. So they've had a couple of games that they should have won, and unfortunately they didn't. And I think this is the one that they're not supposed to win, just like those other ones. They weren't supposed to win them, and they didn't, unfortunately, in a couple of them. This is one they're not supposed to win that I think they're finally going to get over that hump and be able to get the win in this one. Tell me what you got on that Florida-Tennessee there.
The score for Missouri started at 31-28, by the way.
Oh, sorry. I thought you had thrown it out there. Cut out for a second.
Florida, Tennessee. As much as I wanted to see an upset in Tennessee, and Jerry Pruitt to make that unremarkable upset for the 17.5 points, I don't see it happening. I think Florida comes in way too hot. They may keep it within a certain range, but I don't think it's going to be a whole lot. Defense for Tennessee is looking okay. They're not the best. They struggle giving up the deep ball. And we know Florida's going to go deep ball. They've done it all year. That's their go-to. Especially with having Kyle Pitts back too. That Kyle target there is just going to be dangerous. I think Florida's going to pull this one out 38-21.
Yeah, you got it right there on that 17 line, and that's what it is, 17.5. I think Florida rolls pretty easily in this one against Tennessee to claim the East. So give me that line, 17.5. Moving down to Vandy, Georgia, the only other team playing in the East as far as possibility of contention if Florida was to slip up to Tennessee and then LSU following that. Don't see it happening, but nonetheless, Georgia gets Vandy there at the house for the final game at home, and the line is 35.5. I'm going to take that 35.5. I think Georgia should be able to beat them up pretty good in this one for that final home stand.
Yeah, Georgia at home senior night. I think they're going to show out. I'm hoping Vandy gets the score. If anything, a field goal.
Yeah.
They didn't do it last week, but I think we've seen Georgia give a lot of big plays, and I think Vandy may get 1 or 2 big plays by them and sneak something through. We'll definitely see the adjustments that Vandy makes this upcoming week. I just want to pick 45-3. I'm giving Sarah Fuller a field goal in this game.
There you go. I would be kind of excited to see it, to be honest with you.
I would too. I said Georgia just give us a field goal. I mean, it's 3 points. Give it to her.
Never know. How about that South Carolina-Kentucky game?
Yeah, South Carolina, Kentucky. This one I went back and forth on, like the Arkansas-Missouri game. South Carolina's just been hit and miss the past couple of weeks. You know, they did the adjustment with Muschamp getting him out of there. Kentucky is looking decent. Now they're only 3-5 on the season, but at the same time, they're making some pretty good adjustments. I think for the most part, their 3 wins are decent wins, but at the same time, I think they're going to pull this one out of South Carolina. They're going to squeak it out. I think they'll pull it out 27-28-1.
Yeah, not too bad there. You know, the line on this one's 11.5, and I'm giving that one to Kentucky. I think they're going to beat South Carolina by more than that. I think South Carolina's in a kind of in a holding pattern. I don't even know if they're really in a rebuilding stage right now. I kind of thought maybe last season that was starting, but after seeing how they are this season, even though again it's a strange season, but your head coach is now gone. I think they're just in a holding pattern until they can start to get some recruits in there and make things change. Kentucky, I thought, was on that uphill track. You know, they had a 10-win season a couple of years ago. They've kind of tracked down a little bit. I thought they'd be a bit better than they are this season. But nonetheless, I still think Kentucky is better than South Carolina. So give me that 11.5. And then moving down to the Bayou and the Alabama-LSU game. Again, we just talked about it a minute ago. I think Alabama absolutely rolls LSU in this one. So I'm going to take them. Again, I think I'm taking the points and everything on this. Give me Alabama by 29.5 on that one. Yeah, not taking any over-under. So I'll take Bama in this one. Big.
Yeah, this one's going to be. I almost feel sorry, just based on last week's performance against Auburn and the way the Alabama defense and offense is looking, and they just seem to get better and better each week.
Mm-hmm.
And now that you get closer to the end of the season, and like we mentioned, this is a revenge match, even though they're not the same players there in LSU. They don't look at those players; they look at the team. It's LSU.
Yep.
We're coming back for blood.
Yep.
I think Alabama goes down big on this one, 56-14. Our defense is somewhat struggling, or Alabama's defense is somewhat struggling, giving up some plays. I think TJ Finland, he's definitely going to get a good test in this one. We'll see what adjustments Coach O can make to get some points on the board, hopefully.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's our picks. Looking at MadDawgs' picks of the week. Got them in this week. For you, he's going to take LSU plus 29.5 versus Alabama, so he thinks he's going to keep it basically below 29 in this one. Also taking Auburn with that 6.5 versus A&M, looking to keep that one a little bit closer as well. Did take Georgia with a big number at 35.5 there versus Vandy, and he has turned the season around. He is now 12-8 on the season. Didn't look all that great to start. A couple weeks ago, he got it rocking and rolling and has turned the numbers around. So looks to kind of keep that up and going. And without further ado, Cody, let's jump into something we hadn't talked about in a while, just because it gets a little bit hectic to try to keep up with all of it. Let me actually throw MadDawgs' picks on the screen for you guys on watching on YouTube. Hang on just a second. All right, hopefully that didn't glitch out too bad there, but I'll actually throw this on the screen for you guys watching on YouTube. Sorry about that. But anyways, we'll jump into some of the high school football talk that we have not talked about in quite a while. But we're actually in some playoff talks with some teams we know about, so we're going to do it. And evidently, I'm going to play some CBS football sound for you when I was actually looking for my little high school sound there for the drum line. So anyways, Cody, what you got out of the state of Alabama? Yep. Okay, I was going to say. All right, well, I'll hit a little bit in the state of Georgia real quick while you pull it up. Okay. I know I've talked a little bit about it. Westwood is the team that's right around the corner from us. Westwood is headed up to Athens to play for the state championship game tomorrow. If I remember correctly, they're playing. Wow, I completely blanked on the team they're playing too. I think it's Cedar Shoals. So that'll be a good one in the SEC championship game, in the state championship game there. Colquitt County, they are in, I think, the second round, I believe, of state playoff run as well. And their quarterback, he actually went down with an ACL injury, so will be out the rest of the playoffs. Xavier Williams there. So Colquitt County will be looking another direction to try to get somebody in the quarterback position to be able to drive them through the playoffs to a state championship. It's going to be tough. But we're going to see how it goes. did you get your stuff there pulled up out of the state of Alabama?
Yeah, I'm working on it. So, real quick, the actual 1A championship game was actually played today, and Linden won it 38 to. Oh crap! I'm struggling, guys.
It's all good.
Linden won that one game 32 to 8.
Oh yes, that's another thing we have to talk about.
Okay.
The Thompson Alabama game.
I'll finish up this.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh yeah, you want me to?
Okay.
Who was it? Thomaston? Who was it that played?
Thompson.
Okay. Thompson played Auburn in the state championship game. I think this was maybe it was Tuesday night, I believe. And if it wasn't Wednesday, doesn't matter. Go down in the game. Auburn's got the game won. Auburn has the game won. Like I think they're down by. I don't remember how far they were down. But with 18 seconds left, I know they beat them. They beat them by 1, so they were down by 9. With I think like 30. It was under a minute to play. Thompson is down against Auburn in the state championship game. Auburn looks like they've got the game won. Within 18 seconds, Thompson went down, scored, made it a 2-point game, get the onside kick, drive down, and kick the game-winning field goal to win 28-27, I believe it was, over Auburn in the 28-29. So I had the other way against Auburn to win the state championship. So within 18 seconds, they turned the game from a 9-point deficit to winning by 1. So it always goes to show you, never give up on the game, even if you think you're lost, because anything can happen. It's a crazy year, like we've learned.
So far, the only game I haven't seen played yet is 2A. 3A. I ain't gonna try to pronounce that school. FY. Phi?
Yeah, Phi.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's it.
They played Montgomery Catholic, and they actually won that game. So congratulations to them. I hate Matt's press, dude.
You're good. Just go to the Abbeville game. That was the only one I was really concerned about.
Really, truly, the game we're kind of most concerned about is a 2A championship game with a local team that is actually a rival to Houston County. Abbeville, the Yellow Jackets. I didn't realize they were in 2A. I thought they were in 4A.
Yeah, they used to be. I know in basketball and stuff, I think they are. I don't know how that works exactly.
That's it's weird. But they're actually playing in a championship game against Mars Bible. And if we have any fans from Houston County listening, you know the team. And similar team was just they dropped it. League Pickens, they're actually 1A now.
Yeah.
Both those teams Houston County played back in 2010 for state championship basketball. Came up short. We all live it, we know it, and we hate it. But nonetheless, Abbeville is playing tomorrow night. Marcel Bible for the state championship for 2A. So we'll definitely be pulling for the Yellow Jackets in this game because even though it ain't us, it's our region. So pull for them, hope for the best.
Yeah. There you go. Well, I did want to run through one last thing that I just thought of just a second ago, and that was all I'm going to do is touch base really quick on your top games around the country outside of the SEC that are played. You got the Raising Cajuns traveling to Appalachia State. That one's actually on Friday, so more than likely that's not too long after you're listening to this. If you're listening to this one on Friday, that's 8:30. Ohio State, Michigan State. That one might be a good one. Again, I'm just going to jump to the games that I think will be good. 3:30, you got Indiana, Wisconsin. That'll be a good one at ABC. And then basically rounding the night, or not rounding the night out, but later on, 5:30, you get on ESPNU. You get that BYU Coastal Carolina game.
That game has more implements in it than people understand, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Since Coastal Carolina was originally supposed to play Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
Or Liberty, not Tulsa. Originally supposed to play Liberty. And game day this weekend too.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of fishy, but
well, they finally get to put on the board and say, hey, we played a tough game. So I'm glad they actually get one up there like that. So.
Oh yeah, which honestly I'm pulling for Coastal Carolina. I hope they beat BYU. BYU is my favorite.
I like BYU. Anything that's got to do military is pretty good to me.
Looking really good here the past couple weeks. He's put up a lot of numbers.
Yep, that's true. Well, you guys follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SEC Talk 20. Cody, you got any closing remarks before we jump out of this thing? Otherwise, we'll catch up with you guys on Sunday, where we're just gonna round up from the weekend's games. That's all there is.
Little recap. I thought we pretty much touched everything. Like I said, there's some good games to kind of watch out for this weekend, especially across the top 25. Kind of see what's going on there and hopefully get you a better idea for the playoff. But besides that, guys, we appreciate y'all listening. Appreciate your support. Like we mentioned, always follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SEC Talk 20 and email us at SEC Talk 20 SECTalk20@gmail.com. Especially if you listen across country or across the ocean, let us know where you listen from, and we'll give you a shout out on the show.
Yep, appreciate it. Your host, Holden and Cody. We out.